fall pumpkin, baby pumpkin, pumpkin streusel. Today we're going pumpkin crazy because we're going to make one of my all-time favorite fall recipes, which is pumpkin streusel bread. So let's get started. So our first step is we want to get an awesome pecan streusel on top that'll add the perfect crunch to our bread. So I've got 3/4 cup of toasted pecans here, and I just toasted them in a dry pan over medium heat for about 1 to 2 minutes until you smell the pecans. That's how you know they're done. We got a 1/2 cup of all-purpose flour here. We've got a 1/3 cup of dark brown sugar here. I know dark brown sugar is not super common, so if you only have light brown sugar, that's totally fine too. The only difference is dark brown sugar has a little more molasses to it, which I love, so either works totally fine. Got 4 tablespoons of unsalted butter here that I've softened. Add that baby. Whoops. All right. And we got 1 teaspoon of cinnamon and a 1/4 teaspoon of kosher salt here. So into the mix we go. This nut streusel is perfectly crumbly. It's got almost like very coarse pebble kind of look to it. And that's great because what happens when it bakes in the oven is it won't melt into the bread. It'll have that great texture that you're looking for because you're going to have the soft, nice, moist pumpkin bread and then this crunchy streusel on top. All right, that's looking great. As you can see here, it's got the nice crumbles. You don't want to over mix it because you want to keep those kind of like big pebbles in there. Just finish the last bit with your hands. Looking nice and pebbly here. What I'm going to do is pop this into the fridge for however long it takes for me to do the wet and the dry ingredients. I always find if it's kind of like cold when you put it on there in the oven, it'll kind of stay nice and solid for you. So into the fridge we go. Hummus! We have a lot of hummus in our fridge, sorry. All right, next up is going to be onto our dry ingredients. So we've got 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour here, a tablespoon of pumpkin pie spice. So I'm going to link the homemade pumpkin pie spice I make. If you don't have all those spices, pumpkin pie spice from the store is also great. Got some cinnamon, nutmeg, cloves, ginger, all that good stuff that reminds you of fall. So we got a little bit of that there. We've got 2 teaspoons of baking powder and a 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda. Those are going to be our leavening agents to make the pumpkin bread just rise a little bit, just how we like it. All right, just gonna get all this whisked together. You can always give it a smell. It smells like a lovely fall candle, but much more authentic. Dry ingredients are done here. Now we're gonna get into our wet ingredients. So in a separate bowl, we've got some pumpkin puree. You wanna use the pure pumpkin here. Pumpkin pie filling I wouldn't use because that's got the spices and some extra stuff in it. Just pure pumpkin is great, and then you can add your own spices. That's my recommendation. For moisture, we've got some vegetable oil here. Any neutral oil will work for you. I'm always partial to vegetable oil. It seems to work the best in baking recipes, but any neutral oil will be great. Got a couple large eggs here. 1 and 2. Baker tip is I always like to crack them into a separate bowl before I add it. Sometimes you get the double yolk situation, which is kind of cool, but not what we want. We've got some melted unsalted butter here, and I put some vanilla in here as well. So that'll go in. Now I use a combination of vegetable oil and melted butter for this. You're not going to get as much of a dense texture, but I love the flavor that melted butter gets. So we've got the moisture that vegetable oil will give and all the flavor that melted butter gives. So that's looking great. And then we've just got a little bit of white sugar here. We'll just give this a little whisk with our fork. This is a nod to my mom's recipe, slightly different, but thank you, Mom. Once it's all together, we're going to mix our wet into our dry ingredients. And I just like to separate this here. You can make a well or you can separate it like this. Either way, we just want to make sure that we're going to fold it in correctly. I'm going to add in our wet. Right, now just with a spatula, just like with any quick bread, like a muffin or a scone, we want to make sure not to develop the gluten in the flour. So we're just going to do it just until the flour is moistened. If there's a little bit that you see, that's totally fine. We just don't want to overmix it. What I'm going to do is just fold this nice and gently. As you see, it's just starting to moisten, so the last of the mixing will just basically go in once you put it in the pan. So this looks great. A little bit of flour is perfect. Okay, I got a 9x5 pan here that I've greased some butter. Just going to pour this in our pan. As you see, there's a little bit of flour left here, which is totally fine. The rest of the mixing will just be when I spread it. So that'll definitely ensure that we're not over mixing. Spread it out. Looking good. We're going to get our streusel. I'm not going to drop any hummus. All right. Woohoo! And again here, because it's nice and cold, I just think it's going to bake in nice nice and separated that way. So just last tip to mention, you want to make sure that this streusel is like perfectly even over every piece of batter and that you don't see any of the orange batter left. If we have too much streusel over one bit, the actual bread part might not cook all the way. So just make sure it's nice and even and you are set to go. Okay, we're going to pop this into a 350-degree oven for about 36 to 38 minutes until a toothpick inserted right in the center comes out nice and clean. And I've left a little room on the top here, and I've chosen a 9x5 pan for this recipe. It's going to take a little less time to cook, and it's also going to expand a little bit in the oven, so that's why I picked the pan I did. Don't be alarmed if there's a little room. All right, into the oven we go. All right, our bread is done in the oven, and while I'm taking that out, if you like this video, be sure to like and subscribe so you never miss a video and you get to see more recipes like this. All right, our bread is out of the oven, smelling fabulous. So what we want to do just to make sure that it's done is get a handy dandy toothpick. You want to just pick the middle part of the bread. That looks good, and I always just do one more for good measure. And two, perfect. There's no crumb, looks nice and clean. And before we enjoy this and take this out of the pan, we want to let it cool. So we're going to let it cool for about an hour and we'll get to eating. Right, our pumpkin streusel bread has been cooling for an hour, and as they say, good things come to those who wait. So we've cut a big thick slice here. Just wanted to show you what the inside looked like. So that cold streusel that we had really pays off because you've got the nice texture on top. The crumb, as you see if you push in like that, it's not too dense, and you can see all the cinnamon and all the spices running through it, so you know it's going to be super pumpkin-y, super fall, and super delicious. So I'm taking a bite. Yeah. All right, so when you get a bite, you get a huge texture difference, which I love. Anything with texture is the best. So we got the crunchy crumble on top, the bread on the bottom. This is great with a cup of tea, cider, cocoa, pumpkin spice latte if you want to go all out. If you like this recipe, be sure to click up here for another delicious recipe. Put your feedback in the comments. We read everything. We love to hear from you. And until next time, we will see you in the next video. Thank you.